Welcome, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us this afternoon for How to Get Into Techstars. My name is Aly Nicely. I am the entrepreneur in residence for Digital Undivided, and I am someone who has seen firsthand just how impactful and transformative our organization's programming has been. I was a founder within the cohort of the Big Incubator in 2018, and I built my company, which is called Beauty in Color, within that program. And I am now privileged to mentor Black and Latinx women founders in Digital Undivided's programs to really just help serve our mission of creating a world where women of color own their work. So Digital Undivided is a social enterprise founded in 2012, and we're on a mission to just help women of color just own their genius. And we serve to catalyze that genius by helping them build the networks, the skills, and the confidence needed to build technology startups. So we are here today to help you guys understand what it takes to get to that next level and to get into specifically the Techstars accelerator. So just a little bit about Techstars. Techstars is a global platform for investment and innovation. And for over a decade, Techstars Seattle specifically has been working with early stage technology companies to help them achieve their entrepreneurial potential. And this afternoon, we have a special guest from Techstars. We are going to be speaking with Isaac Kato. He is the managing director of the Techstars Seattle Accelerator. And just a little bit about him. He's a serial entrepreneur, a technology leader, and an investor. Before Techstars, he served as the president of Mighty AI, which was acquired by Uber. And he has led several other startups and really invested in the growth and development of others along the way. And he holds an MBA with distinction from Harvard Business School and both an MS and a BS from Stanford University. So he knows his stuff. Isaac, we are so excited to chat with you today. And we can't wait to really get into it and just talk about what it really takes to get into an accelerator like Techstars.
Great. Yeah, Aly, it's great to see you again and to be able to hang out with you. And thanks so much to you. It's a real honor to be able to join you in the Digital Undivided community and chat about all that good stuff. But great to see you. Thanks for having me.
Of course, of course. So let's just talk a little bit about Techstars here. So from your perspective, what is the importance of Techstars and what value does it add to one's entrepreneurial journey?
Yeah. Okay. Well, it's what we do at Techstars is very closely aligned to what I think the mission that Digital Undivided has. But we describe ourselves as the global network that helps entrepreneurs succeed. And when you think about what is the value proposition of Techstars, it really is that. If you think about it this way, most startup companies fail, but most companies that go through a Techstars accelerator have some degree of success, and many of them achieve great success. So of the north of 2,000 companies that have now gone through a Techstars accelerator, 86% of them are still in business or have been acquired. So we really turn that startup math on its head. And if you break it down into its constituent components, again, it's very much the kinds of things that you mentioned. We provide really specific mentorship from extremely high quality focused mentors. We dramatically expand your network when you come into the program and provide the kind of social capital that really tends to help a startup company. We provide a ton of education and just good foundational skills for doing tech startups well, and we connect you with some great peers. So those are some of the elements that you get when you come into Techstars.
That sounds fantastic. So we know that Techstars is one of the top accelerators in the world. How competitive is it to get in to, Techstars Seattle, and I'm not sure if you can also speak to some of the other city-based programs or the virtual program as well in terms of the competitive nature of it.
Yep, for sure. So yes, Techstars is competitive. There's no question about it. And any one given program will typically get hundreds of applications and take 10 companies. But that said, there are 50 accelerators or so globally now, and you can apply to any one of them. There are no restrictions. And the interesting thing is that in this day and age, in this COVID era, most of the programs are run virtually. So actually all the geographic restrictions are kind of taken off the table, at least until things get back to normal. And even then, I think one of the things we've learned is that these accelerators really work well remotely. So it is competitive for any one given program, but when you apply, you can apply to 2 programs at a time. You pick your first and your second choice, and there are 6 windows a year to apply. And what I often tell people is, look, if you're interested in Techstars, apply early and apply often. Okay, you might not get into the first time, but you have a decent chance of getting in the second or the third time. We look for trend lines anyway. So you set a benchmark the first time you apply. If you don't get in, if you make progress, you have a better chance the second time. Last year in the Techstars Seattle cohort, one of the companies we took got in on their third go round and done great since. And I think when you look at the last batch of cohorts that started in the last couple of months, something like 30% of the companies that got in were repeat applicants. And so the other thing I would always say is don't ever get discouraged, okay? If you don't get in, there's no shame, there's no mark against you. It's, hey, wow, here's a company that's interested in what we do. Let's pay attention to them. And the next time around, you'll get even more attention. So competitive, yes, but if you're persistent and you have a really good idea and you have a great team, you'll have a good chance of getting in.
That's awesome. That's really good to know, because a lot of the time, I think people, once they get, rejected, they might not want to put themselves out there again. So it's great that you do look for returning applicants and people who are going to get back up again and put themselves out there again. Very cool. So tell us a little bit about key differentiators that you look for when admitting founders into your program.
Mm-hmm. I'm so glad you asked that question. If you could pull up the slide that I passed you on. So for one thing, I often get the sense that people think that the Techstars admission process is this opaque thing, and we really don't want it to be. We try to be as transparent as possible about how we look at companies and how we look at founders. So I'm going to try to be really clear about what we look for in founders in Techstars Seattle. And I think I should say that throughout our talk today, I'll certainly talk specifically about some things about Techstars Seattle, but most of what I say applies to the broader Techstars network. When we evaluate applications for companies, the things we look at are team, and then team, and then team again. And then we also look at your market opportunity. Are you going after a big market opportunity? What kind of traction do you have? And to a lesser extent, what is your idea? And we don't care as much about the idea because that often will change during the evolution of your startup. But it is team that we really, that's kind of the beginning, middle, and end for how we pick our companies. I probably spend, along with our program manager, 70% of our time just thinking about the team. And so I'm going to really try to be as specific and clear as I can be about many of the aspects that we care about. Awesome. So first and foremost, we love brilliance. And then of course brilliance comes in many different flavors, but something that really sets you apart as a brilliant founder is great. Resiliency is critical. Doing a startup is super hard. It just is. It's one of the hardest things you can do professionally speaking. And we look for signs of resiliency and that you'll be able to go through the inevitable, very rough patches of being a startup founder. Commitment is another key factor. I tend to think that if you're going to do a startup, you really should be all in. And it's got to be something that just burns a hole in your soul to go do. And I use myself as a good example of that.
Mm-hmm.
When I started my second company, which was a data center business in Iceland, I would lose sleep over the idea of not doing it. It was one of those things where I felt, boy, if I don't give this a shot, I will regret this for the rest of my life. This company must exist, and I must be the one to go do it.
Yeah.
And that's how strongly I felt about it. Whereas conversely, when I was looking around for my next thing to do, I thought, well, maybe I should start another company. But none of the ideas I was considering were things that I felt the same degree of passion and commitment for. And so I think wisely, I said, I think I'll go work for somebody else this time around. And so we looked for commitment.
Okay.
A really critical factor, and this is one that may not be as obvious to many, is this thing called founder market fit. And we want to see that founders have some deep insight into the problem they're trying to solve. Okay. And that means, whether you've been a customer who's suffered through some missing product, or you've been a vendor that just consistently sees this opportunity, we want to see that you're really deep and have a really good degree of understanding of the problem you're trying to solve and the customers you're trying to address. It's important that you be able to build. Somebody on the team needs to be able to build and rapidly iterate on product, because we are an accelerator. So during the course of the program, we want to see you make rapid progress on your product as you go through. Strong co-founder and team dynamics. So whether you're truly a co-founding team, or you're a solo founder with a team around you, with one of the things that kills so many startups is poor team dynamics. And co-founding teams blow up all the time for both good reasons and bad reasons. But if you can demonstrate that there are really good team dynamics, that's a big plus when you're evaluating your application. Ambition, we want people who have big ideas and really want to change the world and are really determined to go do it. And that closely relates to vision. So we do want big, change the world ideas. And if you can talk about, hey, this is what the world is going to look like 10 years from now, and I'm going to start building for it now because I think it's such a big opportunity, that tends to get us really excited. The last two things are cultural traits in founders that we really value a lot. And they're also traits that I think are reflective of the broader Techstars organization. So we love founders who are humble and really have a desire to learn. And there are many founders who don't really fit into that mold, and they can do quite well. I mean, there's some people who feel like, hey, I've completely got it dialed in. I know exactly what I need to do. I don't really need much help. Those people who are not going to necessarily benefit that much from Techstars. We really want people who have a strong desire to learn from the program, from the mentors, from their peers. And by the way, we have a number of repeat serial entrepreneurs who come through Techstars. You might think, well, they've done it before. What do they need it for? But I think the really self-aware ones say, okay, I know a lot, but the last time I went through this, I didn't know much about this aspect of startups, and I think I should build my skills there. Wow. I love hearing that. Okay, we had
that. That's cool. So you can join, and go through the accelerator for a different company.
Absolutely, and there are multiple companies that go through Techstars a couple times. So
awesome.
So we like that. And then one of our core values at Techstars is give first, which means that we really try to offer help to people without any expectation of an immediate, return of the favor or whatever. We really believe that helping people is kind of one of our highest callings, and we look for the same kind of attitude among our founders because, and it's especially true because when you join a cohort of 9 other founders or founding teams, and a lot of the value of Techstars is the benefit that the founders provide each other. Cohorts tend to form really tight knit groups that get together for years after they graduate, and they really embody that give first value that we take so seriously. So those are some of the top things that we look for in teams that apply to Techstars.
Awesome. Thank you so much for sharing that. I hope everyone's
Sure.
taking notes. Okay, so I have jotted down a couple of questions that, sparked after, or sparked while you were going through that. So one of them is, what stage company or what stage should you be at with your company before applying to Techstars? Is an idea stage company welcome, or do you want to see, founders and companies come in with an MVP, and with certain milestones hit?
Yeah, it's a really good question. It's important to make the distinction between an incubator and an accelerator, because I think a lot of times they get mashed together. I think if you have an idea, but you're really at the early stages of noodling on it, you're still trying to figure out what you really want to do, Techstars is potentially you're probably a little too early for most Techstars programs. So we really want to accelerate what you're doing, meaning that you have identified a problem and you have started to build a solution towards that problem. Okay. So what we would like to see at the earliest is that you are at least approaching an MVP. Okay. And you should at the latest be pushing out your MVP while you're in program. So you have something to go and sell, and you have product that you can really test out in the market. If that's not going to happen during the course of the program, I would argue, hey, wait a little while. You'll get more benefit and value from the experience when you have a little more substance to your business. Okay? There's nothing wrong with everyone's got to go through that stage. It's just, hey, maybe go to an incubator or apply once you really have a pretty good sense of, here's a problem we want to solve, and this is the first step towards building a solution towards that problem. Okay. So that's kind of the early stage. And then we routinely take companies that have hundreds of thousands of dollars of ARR booked or revenues, typically up to about $1 million, although oftentimes companies who have have multiple millions of revenues will come into a program, especially some of our vertical ones. So I run a city program, which is industry agnostic. We have specific programs that address industry sectors like healthcare or space or fintech, and you'll oftentimes see even later stage companies in those programs.
Okay, cool. And then you also mentioned traction. So, you kind of highlighted some traction points there, but at the very least, what sort of traction should a company have when, they're looking to apply to Techstars? What sort of traction, is good, and is something, that you would consider accepting?
Yeah. So, look, traction is always good. It rarely hurts. But we take plenty of companies that really don't have much, if any, traction. Because again, a lot of companies will actually launch their MVP in program or shortly before program. So there's not going to be a lot of obvious traction. But it's a really important point, if I can talk a bit about it. The thing that traction does, for not just for Techstars, but for many investors, is it helps to answer questions. Okay, I'll bet many of the people who are listening today have gone to pitch to investors before, and then they've gotten this really annoying, frustrating answer of, "Oh, well, you're too early." Mm-hmm. And then you look on the investor website and you say, wait a minute, we're pre-revenue, and the last 9 companies you invested in were pre-revenue. How can you say we're too early? Okay. Yeah. What they should really be saying is, you and the opportunity that you're going after are too early for me right now, because I can't get conviction about some aspect of your business. Maybe I can't get conviction that this is a big market opportunity, or I can't get conviction that you are the right founder or the right founding team to solve this problem. So I don't know. Okay. Or maybe it's, I can't get conviction because I don't know your market space well enough for me to have an instinct about whether this is good or bad. So what's the best way to help me get that answer? Go and get traction. Okay. Not enough people answer the question the right way, though. It shouldn't be, oh, you're too early. Okay. You're not too early. It's just you for what you're doing, and me as an investor that you're trying to raise money for, it's too early for me. Okay?
Got it. So the traction serves as proof. that
Exactly.
idea is valid and that gives you confidence to invest. Is that right?
Of course. Yeah, absolutely. And so, look, I might say, I don't know if you have a really strong value prop. Okay, well, now I have 3 customers who are raving about, how I've changed their lives. Okay, well, that's a pretty good sign that you have value proposition, or that you're heading towards product market fit. So traction helps, but it's not a requirement at all.
Okay, good
For
to know.
Techstars, I should say.
Good to know. And then another thing you highlighted is team. I know
Yeah,
Techstars is all about team, 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 team,
yeah,
and team.
yeah,
Um,
yeah,
and just from my experience mentoring founders in digital undivided programming, building a team is one of the most challenging things for them.
yeah,
Um, and I think as women of color, we tend to take a lot on ourselves, and we hesitate also to share our ideas with others at times and really trust other team members to help bring our vision to life.
yeah,
So you talk about team, and I know that there have been instances of Techstars accepting solo founders. So
yeah.
can we talk a little bit about this, and just how likely is it, to get accepted into the program as a solo founder? And
Yeah.
what advice do you have for women of color founders when it comes to identifying co-founders or building the teams? Like who do they need first in order to get to an accelerator?
Okay. Uh, Great question. And so I'll answer it in a few different ways. With regard to Techstars specifically, I think there is a wide range of viewpoints on solo founders, ranging from some MDs who say, I will not take a solo founder, to other MDs who love solo founders. Okay. And so one general piece of advice is, when you think about applying to Techstars, go and meet the program team, the MD and the program manager, and get to know them. Most of us are very accessible, friendly. Our job is to talk to founders all day long, and just ask the question really directly about what you're feeling about solo founders, and you'll get a variety of different points of view. My own feeling about it is, look, it's certainly easier to make an assessment on a team of co-founders. Okay, again, being a founder is really, really hard. Okay, it's hard whether you have a co-founding team of 3 or 4 or 5 or you're a solo founder. It's just hard, and it's a very lonely journey. And one way or the other, you need that support. So if you are a solo founder, what I will hope to see is that you have a great supporting cast. Okay, you've built up a team of early employees, or maybe they're people who are working for free, or they're friends, or whatever. But you have some supporting cast around you. And again, I do think it's important to be able to, when you come into Techstars, it's important to be able to build and iterate rapidly on product. Whether you're doing that with a co-founder or an employee, or in some cases contract developers, you must be able to build. And this is very specific to Techstars. To Techstars, but you need to be able to build. The other part of your question, I think, was what do you do to identify a co-founder? One thing I will say for sure is the process must be organic. Okay, I would never advise anyone to rush out and go get a co-founder so you can get into Techstars or whatever. And it's hard. Okay. Forming a co-founding team is hard. Maintaining that relationship is hard, but it's certainly beneficial in most cases. What would I look for? My co-founder has, at one point, my first company was my brother, so we knew each other really well.
Yeah.
Got to be somebody you ultimately trust. Okay, and trust usually doesn't get built up overnight. So you want to have some time to get to know each other. If you're the one who started it and you're bringing someone in later on as a co-founder, if you can, do a bit of try before you buy. Bring them on as on a conditional basis. Hey, let's work together for 6 months, and if we achieve these things together, and our relationship looks like this, then I want you to come on as a co-founder. But let's make sure it's right for both. And by the way, if someone's really enthusiastic about your idea, hopefully they'll be willing to take some risk and put some skin in the game to take a bet on you too. Okay, so I wouldn't rush out to get a co-founder. In the long run, you need to trust each other, but you also need to be able to challenge each other, right? It's not I don't think it's nearly as healthy a dynamic if you never have any like conflict or friction or challenges. You need to be able to push each other, question each other's ideas, so that you come up with the best ideas. And so related to that, in a co-founder, I'd really try to find someone who's got both certainly complementary skill sets, so that you're covering multiple bases, but also, diverse points of view, right? Diversity means a lot of different things. And one of them is, hey, come from a diverse set of backgrounds with diverse points of view, diverse decision-making approaches, okay? My wife and I have completely different ways of attacking decision-making, and it certainly can be frustrating to each other at times, but I think we make better decisions because we do it differently.
Yeah.
And so I think you want that in a co-founder too, but it takes patience and it takes, real efforts to build team and have those good team dynamics that I mentioned before.
Yeah. We always say it's like dating, truly.
Of course it is. And frankly, a lot of us wind up spending way more time with our co-founders than we do with our partners or spouses. So it's certainly dating.
For sure. Okay. So let's pivot our conversation just a little bit and focus on the unique challenges that women of color face in the tech industry. So we know that women and founders of color, they just have a tendency to be overlooked in this space. Just personally speaking, for basically until I found Digital Undivided, I didn't think that technology was a space that I could even enter into. I didn't see it as a career field for me, despite years of tinkering with code and all of these things and having tech ideas. I just didn't think the space was for me. So how is Techstars contributing not only to the visibility, but the advancement of women of color founders to really just reframe the view that tech is not for us. It is. Yeah. But what are you guys doing to help us see that and help champion Black and Latinx women founders?
Yeah. I have a lot of different thoughts on this one, and I should talk about it both at what Techstars is doing at the global level, but also what Q and I are doing at the Seattle level. Look, I tend to think of it as a flywheel that is spinning too slowly today, and needs to be spun faster. But I think success really breeds success. Okay, and so we start with success in small numbers, but hopefully that grows exponentially and gets to big numbers. Techstars at the corporate level has an initiative called, which I think they do in conjunction with Harlem, but it's 1,000 diverse founders. So we want to have 1,000 diverse founders come through our programs, and today we have north of 2,000 alumni companies. So that's a large percentage of the overall companies. If you think 500 go through a year, so it'll take some years to get there, I think. But I tend to believe that the single most helpful thing that I can do for founders who come from underrepresented backgrounds or underestimated backgrounds is to bring them into my program and help them succeed, period. Okay. And if I can do that for one or two in my first year, and they go on and they achieve success, which I think they will. Certainly been the experience so far. They'll inspire people. They'll be able to mentor people. They'll provide great role models, and they'll help educate, and they'll give that dose of confidence that hey, wow, if that person, if she could do it, well, then why can't I do it? Okay, if they can do it, then I can do it. And I think just we'll start to get that flywheel spinning. And but look, the best example that I have from our last cohort, one of the stars of the program is a woman named Chanel Fields. So she's the co-founder and CEO of this incredible company called MD Ally. She came in, she applied. She was not, by the way, she was not referred in by anybody.
Okay.
She applied blindly, first time application, and I picked her and her co-founder Kojo, and she crushed it. She closed a good size seed round during program.
Wow.
Okay? And then she actually through Techstars got an opportunity to speak to the New York Times and was in a big profile piece about doing startups in the COVID era. And then she was on Good Morning America.
Oh, that's
and
cute.
By the way, her business is crushing it. She basically is not taking new investor calls because she's so inundated from investors. And the really cool thing is that Techstars was looking to add a founder to our board of directors. And a few weeks ago, they elected her to the board of directors of Techstars.
Wow.
So she's now like my boss's 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 boss or something. But I think Chanel's success is going to inspire hopefully the next group of founders, awesome founders, to say, well, I can do this too, and apply to Techstars Seattle or the Techstars program that makes sense for you. And I think we'll get that flywheel spinning quickly.
Yeah.
So I don't know if that answers your question. There's a whole bunch of stuff that we do around recruiting diverse founders this year, which I'm happy to talk about too. But I don't know if that answers your question.
Yeah, I mean, that's interesting as well, because I know we have a lot of diverse founders walking. So what are some of the things that Techstars is doing in order to reach these founders in their communities?
Yeah. So, one of my sort of painful learnings from last year was that, business as usual is not going to succeed in bringing diversity into our programs.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? Last year was my first year as an MD at Techstars, and we spend, a good half of the year. Well, we really recruit year round, but we intensively recruit for half the year. And diversity has always been a foundational goal of the program, for sure. But I kind of did the obvious things to do as an ex-VC, okay? When I was recruiting my class, I went to all my other investor friends and said, hey, if you know any great founders, please pass them on to me. You look at Crunchbase. I'd go to tech events and, talk about Techstars Seattle. And so guess what? Like, the applicant pool was not remotely diverse enough to build a strongly diverse class, okay? So, even before any concerns around conscious or unconscious bias,
sure,
like, I just didn't talk to enough diverse founders last year. So this year, when Q and I sat down to put our recruiting plan and strategy together, we said, look, we're going to have to do better, okay? So for starters, we're going to set a target, okay? We're going to set targets and be really clear about them. So our targets for this year are of the 10 companies we bring in, we want 4 of them to be led by women or non-binary CEOs. And we want at least 4 of the 10, and at least 4 of the 10 to be founders who are persons of color, or CEOs who are persons of color. And that's the objective target. That's what we're trying to hit. Once you have an actual target, then you actually, it's just like when you assign budget to something. Once a budget exists or once a target exists, then you actually change your behavior to go and do that. Okay.
Yeah,
so there's accountability. And once we have that, we know, okay, well, traditional sourcing methods aren't going to work. So what are we doing? We're doing a ton of direct outreach to diverse founders and having lots of conversations like this with various founder groups who represent underrepresented, underestimated founders. And guess what? Okay, all of a sudden we've taken up our conversations 5 to 10-fold and coming across a bunch of great diverse founders, CEOs. And I hope that we'll hit our targets this year. I think we'll come a lot closer. If we don't, maybe we'll exceed them. So
it's awesome. So kind of speak to kind of take it back to the program and what founders face when they're in the midst of your accelerator. What are the expectations and what does success look like to you?
Oh, goodness. So first of all, it's less about what success looks like to me and what it looks like to our customers. Okay.
Sure.
So, because that is not necessarily a universal or consistent answer. The program is intensive, to be sure. It's 13 weeks. Ours runs from late January through late April.
Okay.
Again, it's an accelerator, so it's not like you hang up your business day-to-day business obligations and come to Techstars School for 13 weeks. We want you to move your company forward even faster than you were before you came in. The major elements of the program are in the first month we do a ton of mentorship. So one of our goals is to line every company up with 3 to 5 lead mentors. And lead mentorship is obviously something that gets bandied about very easily these days. But
Sure.
One of the advantages of Techstars and Techstars Seattle in particular is we have a really deep and wide mentor pool composed of serially successful entrepreneurs. So we try to match every company with a serial founder who's been through the grind several times and can share those experiences. And then we try to match you up with the right subject matter experts. So everybody comes in with a different set of skills and kind of native understanding of things, but most people, everybody also wants to fill in some gaps. So maybe you're a technical founder, but you're really not good at go-to-market. So we'll line you up with go-to-market experts. Maybe you really want to understand a certain industry sector. So we'll find you a mentor who comes from that sector. But we take 10 and only 10 companies a year so we can provide a really customized experience. So the first month is a lot of mentorship and mentor matching and a lot of foundational program content. Throughout the program, there are workshops that take place every week, but there's a lot more in the first month. We actually back off a lot in the second month and let you execute because we want you to build up that magic word traction. Okay,
Yeah.
because traction always helps when you're trying to raise capital. And most companies that come through Techstars will try to raise money either as a leading program or within 6 to 12 months after graduating. And the best way to do that is to get really good traction. So we back off a bit. We still have regular weekly things, but we back off. And then in the last month, we really try to teach you how to become excellent fundraisers. Okay, so fundraising is very much of an acquired and developed skill set.
Yes.
And so there's certainly things like pitch practice, that's obvious, but there's a whole bunch more that goes on around building supporting materials, the right investor deck, financial model, and then how do you build your investor pipeline? How do you read investors? And then when you get to the point where you're actually negotiating term sheets, how do you close your deal? And I've raised over $200 million for my companies as a founder, and I've been an investor in multiple stages. So we're really good at helping people take their fundraising game up, and also we give you a lot of reps. Okay, just a ton of practice, and not just pitch practice, but mock VC interviews, so that you understand how to handle objections. Okay, so that's kind of the last month of the program, and then we network the heck out of your situation and put you together with a whole bunch of investors. So that's kind of the basic program. And then in terms of what does success mean, hopefully you're growing faster. If your goal is to raise capital, that you are well on your way to doing that. And then one, frankly, softer thing that I really try to push for is I want you to walk out of there a better entrepreneurial leader. Okay, so we do a lot of hard skills, customer development and discovery, fundraising, things around product, how to go to market. But I actually think that one of the most important things that you can do to help your chances of success are to develop your leadership skills. And not enough effort goes into that in a lot of cases. But how do you build that initial team? how do you establish the right values that drive the kind of culture and organizational behavior that will lead to long-term success? Because that's the thing that ultimately drives, probably above all else, whether or not you're going to succeed.
Definitely, definitely. And can you tell us a little bit about some of the common challenges that you've seen founders face? This program sounds fantastic, but certainly rigorous. So, what are some of the things that you see founders run into again and again that, causes them to stumble, or things that challenge them that they have to overcome?
Yeah. Everything. There's every challenge under the sun, and it can be both mundane and profound. I still think the biggest bucket of challenges that consistently hurt people are around people challenges. There are certainly co-founder and team frictions that happen, and those are, for me, as like when I've been running companies, always the things that cause the most stress and the most and that are the hardest to solve are people things, right? Mm-hmm. So anyway, so we try to help you build the right frameworks and kind of mental models about how to be a good leader, and how to handle those people issues. Look, the number one reason why companies fail is because they run out of money, which is obviously like a tautology, but people don't necessarily pay enough attention to their runway. And look, the only way you get money is you either get it from your customers or you get it from your investors, pretty much. And ideally, you do both. So those are a big part of the program, of course. Other challenges. I think a lot of times you can never really be customer focused enough and never really understand your customers well enough. And a lot of people just start building stuff and okay, I know exactly what I need to build. And you go running off in one direction and it's the wrong direction. Yes. Whereas if you had really spent more time with the customer up front, doing good discovery, really understanding what those customers need and want and what their pain points are, you're more likely to build the right thing the first time, or closer to the right thing the first time, and iterate rapidly to get it right. But there's every challenge under the sun, and a good MD has seen a lot of it, and and by the way, I think our job is not to be gurus, but actually to be connectors. Okay, because I think I have a lot of experience, but there's still plenty of things that I wouldn't pretend to know the answer to. But what I'm pretty good at is helping you find the right person to help you solve that problem. And again, that's just the benefit of the Techstars network.
Fantastic. And let's talk about just change, because the program is 13 weeks long, and having gone through an incubator, I haven't gone through an accelerator yet, but I know how much you can transform personally and how much you can grow your company in just 10 weeks, like literally growth week to week to week. Like that's something that you have to achieve, as a high growth startup founder. So from what you've seen as managing director, what's the difference between the founders from when they come into the program and when they leave Techstars? What are some of the things that you notice change in them as leaders, individuals, and as CEOs?
Yeah. I think one of the things that almost everybody has more of than when they came in is confidence. Okay, and that confidence comes from, frankly, more self-awareness about what you need to do, where you have holes, and but you now have a method and a process and a network to help you fill in those holes. You have more confidence because you've just got a lot more of the nuts and bolts of doing startups well in place. It's, even the repeat founders who come to the program know that they have gaps, and but a lot of people are first-time founders, and a lot of times you don't know what you don't know, and they come in and they're like, wow, okay, now I actually know that. I know, people tell me I need to build a financial model, but I don't know what that looks like. And, I certainly don't know how to do it well. But by the time you leave, you do. And I think all those kinds of things lead to confidence. And then also, you'll have gotten a ton of feedback from mentors and others during the course of the program that will help shape your direction. Hopefully, you'll feel much more strongly that you're going in the right direction. And then lastly, you have this dramatically grown network to provide support to you, and you know that you're not alone in your journey as you leave the comfort of the program.
Yeah, so. Which is huge. Digital Undivided, we're all about creating community. Especially being women of color, it's more important than ever to have a network to call on when things get tough. When you hear no. So yeah, it's pivotal. And then, being part of something like Techstars, your network expands globally. And, it sounds like a fantastic opportunity for anyone, but especially for, the communities that we serve.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. No, I think, and again, if any of you all get serious about applying to Techstars, one of the best things to do is to really go and talk to alums who've been through the program, and don't hear from the MD who's trying to get you to join my program. Go talk to the people who've actually been through it, but I think by and large you'll hear that most people have had a really enriching, positive, and beneficial experience.
Yeah. No, I can't see how they wouldn't. That's
People
awesome.
find a way. Every now and then someone will find a way.
True.
But look, I think we have a very high NPS rating. People really do have a good experience. And again, we tend to generate a lot of success for our companies, for the vast majority of them.
That's fantastic. So just quick time check. We have a few minutes left. So I am going to just ask you a couple of questions from our list of questions that people have submitted before our session today. So let's take a quick look here. So you mentioned earlier that you do accept applicants who, or you have accepted repeat applicants. So a question is, do you provide feedback to applicants that, you do tell no to help them get, to that next stage to where they can turn that no into a yes?
Yeah. Okay. So the answer is, I generally try to, okay. I will, particularly for people, so we have, talk a little bit about the process. So our applications are open now through October 11th. And this, by the way, this is for Techstars Seattle. Okay. Again, there are 6 windows throughout the year. And because all the programs this year are being run virtually, you can apply to kind of anything you want to. But anyway, once the applications close, we go through a very grueling process of narrowing those down. It's almost like college admissions where you get tons of applications and you have to get to the finalists. So we narrow them down for typically, a couple hundred, a few hundred, down to the 10 finalists. So for anyone who gets into that sort of final 40 or so, I will certainly try to give some pretty concrete, direct feedback to. For people who are kind of at the very top of the funnel, who I might not, who might not get even to the second stage, I don't always have the time. I try, but there are just so many hours in a day, and I have to kind of focus on the people who get through the process. But again, you know what? Most of us are pretty accessible, okay? And it's certainly fair for you to shoot me an email and say, hey, can you give me feedback on why I didn't get moved on to the next round or why I didn't get selected? And I can't promise a response, but I will try to. I mean, we have this give first ethos. And by the way, even if you don't get in, I want you to have a good experience and feel like you benefited from the process. I mean, a lot of a number of people said, hey, just going through the application made me really think about my business in ways that I hadn't before. So I will try to provide feedback, but I can't promise it for everybody.
Got it. Yeah, no, totally. So you mentioned earlier when you were talking about the founder who was wildly successful in the program, the woman of color founder. What is her name?
Chanel Field.
Chanel, yes. Okay. So you mentioned that Chanel didn't have a referral. So can you tell us a little bit about, just how you view referrals in the application process and how a founder can go about forming a relationship with your team before they submit their application to go ahead and either get a referral or, have some sort of name recognition to maybe help in the process, if that helps in the process.
Yeah. So a couple thoughts. First of all, referrals are great because what they do is they come from someone who I trust. So if someone else is vouching for a founder, there's chances are there's a degree of credibility that they have a slight leg up on. But I would also say that I've come to realize that there are many, many, many great founders out there like Chanel who didn't come in with a referral, and I'd be foolish not to talk to them. I think that's one of the blind spots of VC in general, because that's how most VC sourcing activity has historically taken place. You can generally get a hold of me. Okay, you can apply for office hours on the main Techstars website. Okay. My email, which will be, if it's not available, it's Isaac ISAAC.Kato KATO at Techstars.com. Shoot me an email and say, could I get some office hours? Right now, my calendar is pretty full and it's filling up, but I'll usually try to squeeze you in. Again, we generally tend to be pretty accessible, so just get to know us. We try to take as many meetings as we can, and you'll certainly have an edge in the application process if I can put a name with a face and I can say, wow, that person was really impressive. They're really sharp. They know their business well. That helps a lot. So referrals are by no means required to get into Techstars, and you've gotten now plenty of data points on that. So
awesome. And then you mentioned office hours. So how can a founder maximize that time with you? What would kind of spark in the conversation, or what in the conversation would pique your interest and get you to want to have another meeting with such founder or continue the conversation? How can they best prepare and get ready for interactions with you and other investors?
Yeah. Okay. So here's the agenda for my first office hours talk that I do with everybody. Tell me about yourself. Tell me about any co-founders or team members that you have. How did you all come together? Okay, and what inspired you to start the thing you're doing? Where are you today? And where would you like the business to be in 5 to 7 years? Okay, that's it. All right, and go back to the framework that I laid out early on: team, market opportunity, traction, and idea. That's widely available on the Techstars website. If you were taking notes about what I care about from a team perspective, show that you have those things. It's as simple as that. So for starters, show that you have really good founder market fit. You really understand the problem you're trying to solve. Okay. Show that you can build and that you're stage appropriate. Okay. So that you'll be pushing on MVP within a reasonable degree of time, or you're beyond that. Show that you have a big opportunity. You can really build. We do look for venture scale businesses. Now, not everybody needs to raise a lot of money to get that big, but we want to know that you have a chance to build a $50, $100 million recurring revenue business. Okay, there are some great businesses that go after small niche opportunities that are awesome businesses, and some have some of the happiest founders I know, running small bootstrap businesses. But those are not usually what Techstars looks for. So we want to see you have a big opportunity, and so demonstrate that. And show that you have all those things that I laid out in the kind of founder makeup that we look for.
Awesome. So then just something to piggyback on that question. You know, a lot of the companies that I've seen come through Digital Undivided's programming solve problems that are unique to women of color or diverse communities. And there are a lot of people of color in the world, right? But typically, those businesses aren't always thought of as being scalable. How
Yeah.
do you, how do we kind of face that obstacle, you know, because I think a lot of women of color and founders of color are told no because that investor doesn't necessarily have that expertise in that space. But
Yeah.
yet, you know, solving problems for our communities is critical. So
Yeah.
what do you think about this? I know we only have a couple minutes left, but just wanted to address that.
Yeah. It's a good question. Look, I mean, blind spots and unconscious bias that lead to kind of diminishing perceived opportunity are a real thing for sure. We try to not have we try not to have too much preconceived notions about things. I think one of the best ways to do that, look, if you're talking to me, is to say, look, the market opportunity is defined as this. There are this many million prospective customers who, through my market testing, are willing to pay me, $100 a year or $100 a month, whatever it might be. Mm-hmm. So I've got, a market opportunity of this much, and that's an objective empirical statement that, doesn't have anything to do, hopefully with my background or my biases, but it's just, look, I look for big numbers. Simple as that, right?
Yeah.
And then as companies get down, into the due diligence phase, I try to have, I have a cast of characters who help me evaluate companies once we get into the late stages. I try to make sure I have a diverse group of people around me. So I have for the final 20 companies, we have a screening committee, and I go out of my way to make sure that it's composed of diverse individuals, both people of color and it's well represented on the gender diversity spectrum. So.
Okay, that's fantastic. And we just have one last question from the folks who are tuned in watching. So we talk a lot about founders of color and, the word diversity, but what does that mean? So the question is, when you speak about diverse founders, are you prioritizing founders of color who are either Black, Latinx, or Indigenous? Or do we talk about people who are Indian or East Asian as well when we speak about underestimated or underrepresented founders? How do you see that as an organization?
Okay. That is potentially a loaded question. Let me start by saying, so you saved the hardest one for last. Okay. Let me start by saying, first and foremost, you know what I look for? I look for great founders.
Yeah.
Okay? I don't care, if what your gender is, what your race is, where you grew up. I look for great founders. Okay. The problem with, the accelerator investment world in the past is that there's this whole swath of people who just never even got considered. Okay? Yeah. They never got to the plate to take a shot. And my goal is to give everybody a fair shot. Okay. And what I found in my own diverse sourcing efforts is, wow, there are incredible founders out there who I wouldn't have met through my normal sourcing efforts. Okay. Through, referrals from other investors. So I don't prioritize any one underrepresented group or another. I just want to make sure that I get to talk to everybody. Okay. And then I want to look for greatness. And one thing I found, so one of the characteristics that I care about, resiliency. Okay. Well, so I look for people who have had to find success in the face of adversity. And that could be someone who comes from an underrepresented minority who never had the social capital building opportunities that I had, or it might be a competitive athlete who just had to go through tons and tons of pain and be really focused and disciplined and live in a very competitive world to come out on top. There are all kinds of things that contribute to resiliency. And one of them is coming from a lot of underrepresented founder groups. It's just like very clear to me. So,
Yeah.
and by the way, empirically speaking, my diverse founders who've come through my program have done really well. Okay? Of the three companies that were the fastest to raise money out of the last cohort, two of them were led by CEOs who were persons of color. Okay, so
Wow.
guess what? Like, you know, it matters and it works. So
That's fantastic. Isaac, thank you. Thank you so much for taking the time to have this conversation with us today. We hope that everyone watching either live or later will come away with pretty much a roadmap and a call to action, and know exactly what they need to do to get ready for the Techstars Accelerator. So thank you so much for joining us this afternoon.
thank you, Ali. It was super, super fun. I really enjoyed talking to you. And again, don't ever hesitate to reach out. We would love to talk to you. And again, thanks so much for hosting. It was really fun.
Awesome. It was awesome. Thank you so much. I had a great time. Talk soon,
Okay.
Isaac.
Take care.
All right.
Bye-bye.
Bye.